Also another thing, yeah, it would be great to see them bring in new ideas because, like I said, you look at how many games the EA is publishing, how many games are under the EA development teams. I mean, the sky is really the limit. I mean, if there's anyone that you
Yeah.
want out of the top publishers, developers that you kind of want to have, you'll take EA, because you got a lot to work with.
Yeah.
But also another thing that I was looking at in terms of how this deal could really work out from a consumer standpoint is the microtransactions. We could really see
Mm.
kind of this put to an end, maybe under Microsoft. It all depends on the route that they go, but we could possibly see that put to an end from a lot of these big games that people really wanted to play. Like we know Star Wars Battlefront, that plagued them from the start, and there was lawsuits and
Yeah.
and all this legal things that were going on. So we could possibly see the end of that. So this is definitely looking like it could be a favorable
Hmm.
thing from their standpoint and our standpoint, but ultimately we first need to see the deal come through, and then see how Microsoft responds with this because we could think as many things as we want to, but ultimately we know that they have the final say so, and sometimes they tend not to care what the consumer has to say.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's crazy. I just thought about that. Yeah, that's the big thing with EA right now is the microtransactions. But I have a question for you. Is Microsoft anti microtransaction?
Well, it's so hard to tell. I mean, I think the only way we would really be able to kind of figure that out is through their exclusives because pretty much we know that since it's under EA,
Mm-hmm.
if Battlefront on Xbox and PlayStation are going to have the microtransactions
Right.
on it. But that's actually a really good question because we don't really know the answer to that question. So that's a really
Yeah.
good question to ask. You would hope they are anti
Mm-hmm.
microtransactions, and you would hope
Mm.
that EA is kind of saving up, and they're just kind of sitting back and watching. One of the good things about Nintendo is that they're just so smart. They're like they're know how to remain consistent. They don't have to make a whole
Mm.
lot of splash. But guess what? They sat back with the Nintendo Switch. They were sending out their Nintendo DSs and all these things here. And then guess what? They're like, all right, we're gonna watch, we're gonna listen, and boom, we're gonna strike. We're gonna allow
Yeah.
everyone else to make the mistake. And so that hopefully they pick up that same thing and they are
Mm-hmm.
anti microtransaction because it'll be really great for them. They're really bringing a lot of business just off of that alone.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest problem with the Xbox One X. Of course, it's the fact that they don't have any great games you can throw on it and play it. I know that Sea of Thieves just got done with I think their beta or something like that, and everybody was
Hmm.
loving it. But I don't think
Yeah.
that game is going to be able to go head on when God of War starts coming out for PlayStation 4, and then the new
Yeah.
Spider-Man,
Last
things
of
like that.
Us.
So I think E3. I think I don't want to get in too much into E3 talk because we're gonna have a lot of things for that
Hmm.
coming up this summer, and I'm super excited for it. But I just want to see what EA says coming up on E3. I hope they at least acknowledge the bad that they have done. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them to go up there and act like they didn't do anything and everything's okay, and they just start talking about how FIFA is gonna have better faces and more animations for people running. I don't really want that. You know what I'm
It
saying? I hope they come out and address everything and and make it right. And maybe joining Microsoft is the way to go. To be honest with you, if they join Microsoft and they start making Dragon Age for Xbox, and they start making Dead Space for Xbox, and they start making more and more more and more of EA's bigger games for Xbox, and they're good, you're gonna grab some PlayStation 4 people. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna tug them the other way. They're gonna start getting
yeah.
Xbox. They're gonna start getting Xbox Ones. They're gonna start getting Xbox One X, and a lot of these games would be awesome on Xbox One X.
And what I think would be amazing, and I think that would, and to as much as I would love that for EA to admit that they're wrong, I won't say what they will or they won't, but I just know that kind of given the history of when things have come up, or there's been flaws in games, they tend to kind of shy away and just act
Yeah.
as if nothing happens. And I mean, they're not the only developer. There's many developers that do that. They act
Mhm.
as if nothing's going on. Now, the thing about it is that as I keep thinking about it, Microsoft really it's favoring them because I mean we know that EA just bought out what is it, the Titanfall
Oh,
developer,
respawn.
Respawn. So we know that they just bought out Respawn. So you're looking at it here is that the biggest thing that would bring a lot of consumers to back to Microsoft and back to Xbox, and you're talking about the Xbox One X, is to take not a lot of these games because in order for you to compete with PlayStation, you're really going to have to go much further than these storytelling games, these
Yeah.
RPGs and all these. You got to go with multiplayer. You have to have that Halo S type game that are really going to draw
Mhm.
people in. You need something that's going to keep people going for years. I see that. Guess what? They
Mhm.
can take advantage of a lot of these things. You're talking about the Star
Yeah.
Wars Battlefront. You're talking about the Mass Effect. You're talking about the Titanfall. And I mean, the list goes on of grabbing these shooters and these multiplayer
Mhm.
games and making them strictly console exclusive. And especially with the Xbox One X coming out and a lot of these games still being in production, that could really work out in their favor. And even making the Dead
Yeah.
Space, into a kind of a it still has that story element to it, and the main element is the story element, but throwing a little bit of multiplayer in there, kind of like they did with, or Sony did with Last of Us. So
Mhm.
it's looking favorable.